Sanchez, motivational speaker, U.S. Marine, Paralympics gold medalist. You've done it all, my man. The list is longer. I'm just tired of reading it. We talked a little bit about your story in the first segment, but I kind of wanted to go back and you tell us, what needed to happen or what happened in your life that, got you in a position where you forced change.
Right. Well, I mean, what needed to happen was probably, no one single thing. And unfortunately, the way the mind works is we all learn on our own pace and at our own time. You can lead the horse to the water, but you can't make him drink the water, right? So I struggled for a long time trying to figure out the why and, what I'm going to become. Because basically for the long period of time, I just sort of condemned myself to this bleak existence of I got to just write out my days as a miserable being because I couldn't do the thing I was passionate about, which was military. Because in essence, I had sort of taken responsibility for the accident. The accident wasn't just an accident. I said I was getting reckless and I was riding a lot faster on my motorcycle regularly and put myself in dangerous situations because I was an adrenaline junkie, sorry. And eventually it caught up to me. So I wouldn't just write it off as the car ran a stop sign, hit me, and left the scene. It was something that I internalized. So I had this sort of philosophy of because I allowed this to happen and suicide was not an option, because, mom raised us, never quit, never surrender. So I was stuck in limbo. I was like, what was I going to do with myself? I had sort of told myself that I wouldn't be able to have a fulfilling life. And because I kept repeating all these things to myself and I got so good at telling a sad story of basically a tragic incident that it became fact. It became so
who you were.
Right, exactly. I even gave it a name, for crying out loud. I dubbed it the broken lion curse, if you will. I broke my own sword wielding hand, and I could not pursue my Spartan, a lifelong dream, and now I was stuck as sort of this broken, cursed individual that wanted to hear himself roar at some day, but didn't know how that was going to happen. But eventually, the first experience was a couple of individuals that I befriended in the hospital, sort of both committed suicide, and they had the same type of injury, and had a better prognosis for walking at some point. You take away something from somebody, the first thing that they're, just dying to get back is that thing that they lost. For an individual to lose his ability to walk, that crosses your mind and you just hung up on it is to get back on your feet, so to speak. And many times that can't happen, just the laws of medicine and whatnot. But the individual sort of scenario for me was that I didn't compromise the entire spinal cord, and as a result, I was able to use my quads and actually get back on my feet, so to speak. But really, the first sort of point of my deciding to try to do something with myself in life was when those individuals sort of conspired and executed suicide, and my wife took the opportunity to say, what are you going to do now? Sink or swing. And she knew my mindset was not of a quitter.
So she was okay with
yeah, exactly. And so I enrolled at school, and one of my biggest phobias to that point was going to college because I genuinely thought I was not college material. I grew up, feeling very stupid. That was one of my stories, one of my insecurities. My brother, when I was younger, I loved him to death. But he used to call me stupid all the time from when I was 12 to 15 years of age. I was always a stupid little brother. And, you take these things on, you call somebody something long enough, whether good or bad, they start to believe it, especially if it's someone you admire, so like, parents or role models, whatever, you got to be aware of how you speak to people. And in my culture, Hispanics, we have a habit of calling, oh, mijo, gordito, hey, gordita, come over here. It's like, and then they tend to become
I feel you.
Exactly what you're calling them. So you got to be careful of those labels out there. So I grew up feeling stupid. But, when you go into a scenario like, for example, me joining school, the doctor essentially said, you're never going to walk again. Your military days are over. You have to plug into corporate America. And as such, you got to go to school and get an education. So I went to school with that mindset, that Viking approach. I don't have an option. This is the only option I have. And when you go into something that way, failure is not an option. You pretty much succeed at it. So I blew through school, in 4 years, from scratch to finish, and graduated from San Diego State, I think in 4.5 years, business major and then minor in communication. So sort of evolved over time.
Right on. And then, so how long before the 2008 Paralympics did you decide, like, I'm going all in? And once you did, how long did that process take to actually be ready for it?
In 2005 was my first season with the team, and at that point I wanted to be just a part of the team, and I was content with doing just that. In late 2006, I actually had planted a scene in my head that I could actually be podium contender for the time trial in Beijing. And by late 2006, when that season was over, basically in 2007, I made a decision to go after gold in Beijing. So everything revolved around that decision, including leaving my current girlfriend, moving out, getting situated on myself, and I took on the life of a full-time athlete. And so I aligned my ducks for everything for that end, and it paid off. Obviously, in 2008, I went to Beijing and I won gold in time trial and bronze in the road race. So when you win, the pain all goes away. Nothing hurts, right? So all your gripes and moans and complaints and risks and everything you sacrificed leading up to that point,
is all worth it.
Is all worth it. Is all worth it, right?
Yeah, I think that people don't give themselves the opportunity to get to that point.
Right.
Set a goal. Obviously, your goal is a stretch for most, but any goal, once you accomplish that goal, then you start to feel better about yourself, and they start to add up for sure.
Precisely, it becomes a habit of life when you start setting goals and you see them through and you achieve them. Then it starts to become a habit of success and succeeding at the things you set out to do.
And do you find that people oftentimes will kind of shoot for the moon with goals because they're used to failing, kind of thing? Like I feel like people have a tough time with just executing a goal, like finish what you started, and I think that's a tough part for most.
Yeah, we all struggle with things we set out to do. Weight loss, quitting smoking, quitting drinking, spending more time with your kids, being better at work, management, or a good employee. We all struggle with things. Nobody is immune to that concept. But one of the biggest things that I struggle with, even before the struggling to see things through, it was my self-talk. I had a genuine, deep-rooted self-talk of I am not capable, I am not worthy of love, success, and happiness. And those all grew from traumas and experiences that I had as a child, and I was bringing them into my adult life, and so my whole philosophy is about, the stories that we tell ourselves. Literally, we are the sum total of what we think about. Every man's character is based on the thoughts he dwells on the most.
I was like, I listened to you all day, buddy. In 2009, your story was featured in a documentary, Unbeaten. What was that experience like? I know that it was 200, the race, 267 miles over 6 days and 3 wheels. Like, what is all that about?
Yeah, so Alaska has this race every year. It's one of the longest stage races in the world for hand cyclists. And basically, we're traversing over the period of 6 days, 270 some odd miles, but with some ridiculous elevation claims and elevation gains, not elevation claims. And at that point, there was a producer, a filmmaker, an independent filmmaker, who was following a couple of other individuals in their experience through Sadler's Challenge, and that's kind of where I met and sort of fell upon that opportunity to be a part of that documentary, because in that race is where he met me and Alejandro, one of my teammates, who at the time was the reigning world champion in hand cycling, was my mentor as well. So he started, really capturing our racing, what we were doing, and so he sort of bundled it in, and in the end, I pulled off gold. And he shot that whole experience, leading up to, gold in Beijing. So obviously that was a huge opportunity, and he put it as part of the documentary. So it was actually something I kind of stumbled into, if you will.
Right on. And then I saw, part of it, the story of the human spirit. You mentioned that a little bit. When life gives you every reason to throw in the towel, what does it take to actually change your mindset? I know for some, you're wired different than most, so I won't say it's easier for you, but you knew how to tackle something in the right way. For someone that doesn't have that background and that wherewithal, how does that person start, and what did it take for you?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I wasn't born this way.
Sure.
I don't have this thing by innate nature. But we all can change, and we all believe certain things, and our belief system evolves over time as we go through different experiences. So we all have that common thing where in our life, society now, because everything's quick fix, everything has to be bought now and enjoyed tomorrow. And it's a flyby sort of success. And if we don't get it right now, then we sort of, throw it to the side, throw in the towel, and just go look for something else. And we make a habit of that as well. So I had that same habit. But eventually, that all turned around. My first success being, the military and special operations. And then obviously the accident ended that career. And then my second success being, a success in college. And for the longest time, that college degree was my most pride jam, crown and jewel of anything I had accomplished in life, because it was one of the issues that I struggled with more mentally, not physically.
Sure.
I was always an angry kid growing up, so working out and just beating myself up on the bike, day in, day out came naturally. But that started a snowball of achieving things and seeing things through, and so it started. It opened the window for my believing that I can do otherwise, other than just the self-perpetuating cycle of failure.
It was your time to tackle
Right,
the other demons that were going on. Yeah,
exactly. And so we have this thing where in our society everybody says like, oh, well, that individual's wired differently. That individual has opportunity, came from an affluent family, trust fund, resources we don't have access to. Therefore, they can succeed at certain things and we cannot. But within my own family of siblings, for example, I have basically grew up with an older brother and my twin sister. My oldest brother grew up with my grandfather. But so let's just focus on the three of us. So you have my sister, who is a tragic story due to the trauma and experience that we experienced in living in Los Angeles and the way we grew up, this dysfunctional, violent environment. My sister's current status right now is homeless, drug addict in San Diego, and I don't know if she's honestly still alive anymore because I have no contact with her at this current point. It's a very emotional subject, but I got to share this because this makes my point. So you have what is essentially on the left side of the spectrum of failure in our society, correct? Let's just say we agree on that. And then you have a brother who both of us made a challenge to each other because he was Army Special Forces and I was Marine Corps Special Forces, and we said, we're both adrenaline junkies, and he's like 2 years older than me, so we always challenge each other, one up each other. He's like, all right, let's see who can get the Delta Force or Team 6 first, and we made that gun, and that's actually why I was getting out of the Marine Corps, going to the Navy. I was because at the time the Marine Corps Special Ops wasn't part of the SOCOM umbrella, and all the money was in the SOCOM umbrella, which was Army Green Berets, Navy SEALs, and Dev Group Delta, and et cetera, et cetera. And I won't go into that too much, but so that was why I was transitioning. But that ended for me. My brother is actually a current operator with Delta Force, and he's been in for 23 years, shot 4 times. He's the war hero, and what we'd essentially say the right side of the spectrum as far as success in our American model. And then you have myself, who's meandered both between suicide and those highs several times in my lifetime. Okay, so what's the excuse now? We essentially grew up the same way with the same influences. My parents aren't these greatest success stories of the Rockefellers, and they're immigrants from small rural town in Mexico, Pueblo, small village, and have very limited education. But due to the influences, whether good or bad, it produced both sides of the spectrum and an individual that meandered both. So you can't break it down to privilege and all this, and all these other reasons that we all come up for why we don't see our things through. The bottom line is it just breaks down to how we interpreted those experiences that we grew up with, our attitude about them. We can be a victim of it or a victor, go through it or grow through it. Have a breakdown or a breakthrough. And I've had both of those extremes. So
right on. I think that's a good way to end this segment. Great stuff, Oz. Thank you for joining us. We're going to come back and get more in depth with Oz. Thank you